is a big place. Yet, why do most people end up going to the same places when they travel? Well, my theory is that the 80-20 rule can be applied to tourism, with 80% of the people going to 20% of the places. And that has bad consequences on the local life, the traveler themselves, and the climate. First, local life is modified to serve the needs of tourists, with cafe, hotel, restaurant, cruise ships being built to accommodate them. Second, the travelers don't truly get to experience what they're looking at anymore. They just go to the idea of a place and all end up taking the same pictures. And lastly, it's also bad for the climate, because it's estimated that 8% of global CO2 is generated by tourism, with planes and cars being a big part of it. It's basically all about selling fast, consuming fast, traveling fast. But what if there was a way to slow down the way people travel? What if we could help those travelers get to 80% of the places? And what positive impact could that create? Well, my partner and I have found part of the solution: gardens. No, I see you laughing and raising your eyebrows, and I get it. Where do gardens have anything to do with decentralizing tourism? Well, first, let me take you back a little bit. The question of mass tourism was always triggering for me. I just couldn't understand it. If the world is so big, why do we all follow each other to the same places? So when I was 18 and had to choose a topic to study, it was clear that I wanted to study tourism. I had the feeling that something needed to change. But I was 18, and at that time, I had no idea how I could create a difference. I didn't even know how I could travel sustainably yet. I was young, I needed a job, and I ended up doing exactly the opposite of the change I wanted to make. I moved to London and started selling the idea of London to hundreds of people. 3 days, 2 nights, Oxford Street, fish and chips, Harry Potter studio. It had it all. But this wasn't what I was supposed to do. So I locked that dream in a corner of my mind and simply left the tourism industry. It wasn't until years later that I could unlock that dream again. And it all started with a bicycle journey from Brussels to Tokyo. I had this dream of doing a long bicycle trip for years. Lucky me, when I met Dries, one of the first 5 words we exchanged included the beautiful word of bicycle. So a year into a relationship, we decided to take that trip. And yes, before you ask me, you can call that a relationship test. But that journey made me realize that it was possible to travel in a sustainable way. And it got me convinced that traveling by bicycle or by foot or by train, something that can also be called slow travel, had the power to change tourism. And that for 3 simple reasons. First, slow travel enables you to connect with people. I read online one day a quote that said, if you meet a stranger a day, you'll be happier. And I found that to be so true. Slow travel made me realize that most people are actually just nice and kind. From the first day of our trip, we were welcomed in a way we could never have imagined. People opened the doors to us. They put food on the table, and they gave us a bed to sleep on. And before we left, I was quite anxious about the world. I mean, all we hear are just negative stories. But I was so wrong. And a good example to show you that is that if you type Iraq in the search engine, what you're going to get is probably pictures of soldiers and bombs. And of course, it's real, but it's not all of it. What we found with recycling in Iraqi Kurdistan were people stopping on the side of the road to help us figure out a way. On that picture, you can see that I'm struggling, right? It was 45 degrees, headwind, no water left on the bicycle, and we had no idea where we were going to sleep that evening. And I remember crying for the first time of the trip and telling Dries, you go on, I'll just stay here. There's no way I'm moving anymore. And at that time, that woman there, Lena, she stopped the car, opened the window, and she said, what are you doing here? Where are you going tonight? Would you like to come and sleep at my house? Yes, please. From crying on the side of the road to sharing a meal with a beautiful family. Second, you get to see what others don't see. Because traveling by bicycle, by foot, or by train leads you to places that are just not highlighted in travel guides. It's basically the joy of missing out. You don't have to run from one highlight to another to take the same picture as everybody else anymore. You get to embrace the present, stumbling upon a traditional wedding, seeing that man selling suspicious fish on the side of the road, or getting to see a sumo fight without even having planned it. Because the places you go are not touristy, it means that local life there is still organized around the needs of locals. And that's one of the power of slow travel. You get to eat, sleep, and basically spend your money in a way that contributes to the local economy. Third, you get to experience the joy of being outside again, alive and kicking. Because when you slow travel, you're part of the environment where you're traveling. And that's such a strong reminder that there's just no planet B. And that's another power of slow travel. You get to preserve the environment that you're looking at, because one of the most important engines you have is this. It's your own body. And all you have to do to fuel that is eat a little bit of extra food to be able to keep on going. Traveling from Brussels to Tokyo took us 11 months. But I have good news for you, is that you don't need 11 months, and you don't need to go to Tokyo to have a similar experience. In fact, you don't even need to go far. You could just hop on that bicycle, get on a train, and maybe start with going to camp in a garden of someone you don't know yet. Let me explain that to you. When we were back from Tokyo, COVID happened, and all the borders closed. We couldn't travel anymore. And even some parts of nature were closing because, remember, 80% of the people go to 20% of the places. So the most popular hikes were just overcrowded. And so we asked ourselves, how could we help people to start to slow travel? And how could we enable people to be kind and share with each other, something we had experienced so much between Brussels and Tokyo, while at the time, new social connections were precisely what was forbidden. When you probably have guessed what I'm about to say. Gardens. Our idea was simple. We called it Welcome to My Garden. Easy. Citizens could open the garden so that people traveling in a climate-friendly way could go there and camp for free before continuing the journey the day after. Dries put the garden of his parents on a map. He shared it on social media, and then something incredible happened. In 2 hours, there were 50 gardens on the map. In 2 weeks, there were 500 gardens. And in 3 years, there are almost 5,000 gardens in more than 40 countries. But behind these numbers are hundreds of stories of people who started to change the way they travel. People who realized that slow travel was also something for them and that they were capable of it. And every single dot on the map, to me, is someone contributing to changing tourism. And that's the missing link, why I couldn't find an answer to changing tourism when I was 18, because the truth is, to beat mass tourism, you need to have a mass of individuals making it happen together. It's not a one-person show, it's a societal show. It's in fact a win-win-win. A win for the slow travelers who now have a nice and safe place to stay for the night. A win for the host who now get to meet new people without even leaving the house. And a win for climate, because decentralized tourism does not put pressure on local communities and natural resources. Now, I want you to think about your next holiday destination. Think about it. Let's take a moment. Yeah, do you have it? Next holiday destination in your head? Good. Well, if it's a touristic area, I want you to take that idea and just put it aside. Instead, I'd like you to take a map out and look at areas where you haven't been yet. Places where you could go by train, by bicycle, or by foot. Because I can already tell you one thing from my own experience, is that you won't regret it. Slow travel changed me, and I know slow travel can change you, and I also know slow travel has the power to change tourism. Thank you for having me.